Good morning, everyone. My name is Antoinette Green. I'm a SCRAV graduate, which is a program sponsored by Samaritan Ministries, and this here is my testimony. I would like to start off saying that I was born in the Anacostia area of Southeast DC, and my life has not always been as easy. At the age of 6, my parents divorced, and in regards to that, my father temporarily left the home, while my mother ended up dabbling into drugs. Due to that, I was left with no parental guidance, and the only structure I had was when I was at school. My school was a small church by the name of Anacostia Bible Church Christian School, and a strong family ran the school. They were the ones who installed my inner power that I have now, which I say is faith and hope. They told me that I had to have hope and faith to get through the obstacles that I was going to endure. And the only way to get through it was just to push through and just know that there's a better. Unfortunately, after 2 years, that school did close, and I was left to got through the streets alone. Through that, I have met people who did not have my best interests in heart, which led to many relationships that were either physical or mentally abusive. For one of them worst relationships came a bit of hope, which was my son, Andrew Green. With Andrew, I had a new sense of hope. He was born at 6 months and only 2 pounds. I was determined to give him the best life possible. So from there, I graduated high school and I worked a job from the moment he was born. When he was about 1, I lost my job, unfortunately, at the National Air and Space Museum, where I was a cashier. On that day, the only advice I was given was just to pray. I didn't want to pray because my hope was shot, my faith was shot. I felt though praying would not help me feed my son or keep a roof over our head. And the advice came from a stranger in a lift share, as she told me to pray, and she prayed over me, and she just prayed that the Lord would show me the door to go through. The second was from my father, who told me to pray and to keep doing what I always did, which was just push through. I took that advice even though I did not want to. After about 5 days of being unemployed with about only limited resources and funds, I walked my son to the nearest food market, where I stumbled across the Skyline Workforce Center. I've seen that center many times, and what stood out most was the sign that said 355 people employed from the program. So I thought to myself, what else did I have to lose? So I walked in with my son, and I walked to the receptionist, and I said, hello, my name's Antoinette, and I'm just looking for something to help me with employment. The receptionist looked at me and my son, and she guided me to the back. We sat down, and she said, what would you like? And I said, I just need a job. I just need a job to feed my son. And we talked, and I told her my life situation, and she suggested the SCRAB program, a work readiness for test that would help me with my resume and work etiquette to get into the workforce. As she looked through the paperwork, she told me, unfortunately, I would have to come back in 3 weeks because the program was going to start that Friday. I was a little bit discouraged. So I felt as though 3 weeks was too long to wait. I'm not sure if she saw it on my face or from looking at my son, but she said, if you can make it Friday, we can try to squeeze you in. And I told her I would definitely be there. That Friday, I walked in, and it was a class of about 10. That's where I was introduced to Miss Duffy. Miss Duffy introduced herself as our instructor. And she informed us that by the end of this 3 weeks, not all 10 of us would graduate. She explained that this course was not just to get us ready for a job, but it was to change our lifestyle, to mold us into better individuals. And most of us didn't believe it, but by that Monday, the class was cut down to 5. And it's not because she cut us, it's not because we was forced to leave. It was personal choice. People who didn't want to grow, that didn't want to follow the guidance of Miss Duffy. From there, I knew I had to be the one to make it through that class. I knew that 3 weeks, that it could mold me into a better individual, that I felt as though, yes, what else did I have to lose? So through the 3 weeks, Miss Duffy guided us through, and she did mock interviews with us, which was questions and actual interviews. We even went to a work entire etiquette class where they fitted us with work appropriate clothes. And from there, I was also able to gain 2 interviews. With the 2 interviews, I went in and I did my best and I answered the questions the way I did in the mock interviews, but unfortunately, I didn't get not one job. I didn't get a call back, and I felt discouraged because we was near the end of the class, and I didn't get no good news. From there, it was the last day of the class, and Ms. Duffy sent us to a hotel where they were having the hospitality open interviews for multiple positions. And I remember sitting there and I told Ms. Duffy, I can't afford to go out there if I'm not going to get the job. And she told me, she said, you go out there and you tell them what you know. And I was like, Ms. Duffy, I never worked hospitality. I'm nothing more but a cashier. I don't have experience. And I said, I'm not going. And she said, you're going to go and you're going to speak to them. And she said, you do what you do best. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I said, okay, I will go. I took my new resume, I took my new clothes, and I went up there, and I was in a room full of at least 20 interviewees. And everyone there had a resume filled with hospitality, while all I had was a cashier at a museum. So when it was my turn to speak, the gentleman asked me, what position would you like? And I told him shyly, I just want to be a housekeeper. And he said, why a housekeeper? I said, because I don't have experience in anything else. He was like, so what do you have experience in? And I thought back to Ms. Duffy and her encouragement, and I said, I was a cashier at the National Air and Space Museum, and I also worked at the Pentagon City Mall before. And he said, that's interesting. You never thought of working at the front desk? And I said, no, because I don't have experience at the front desk. He said, but you have to look. He was like, you know the area? I was like, of course I do. And I just smiled. I was like, yes. From there, he said, I want you to meet 3 more people. I walked up to a table with 3 people who I didn't know at the time was the GM, the front desk manager, and the HR director. I sat down, and they asked me the same question. And I told them I was applying to become a housekeeper, but the gentleman here wants me to speak with you. So they asked about my experience, and I said I was a cashier at a museum, and that's about it. And I said I smiled, and I said, but I'm willing to learn. And the lady in the middle, which happens to be the manager of the front desk, said, I like your smile. I like your attitude and your energy. I want you to work at the front desk. And I said, really? And she said, yes. And from there, I started the job. It was a rough road. I worked very hard because I wanted to prove myself that I can do it. Within 6 months, I was promoted to the supervisor. From there, I was appointed to the position to where I help train people who come in that doesn't have as much experience as I had. So now we fast forward to today, and with the help of Samaritan Ministries, I have multiple calls where they check in on me, on my job, on my living situation, and I'm happy to tell them that now I have my own apartment, and this was my first Christmas spent with my son there. As of recently, I'm still employed at the Holiday Inn National Airport, where I train people who come in that doesn't have experience like myself. I have sent multiple people to the SCRAF program, where recently 3 has graduated and are now employed themselves. From this testimony here, I just want to tell everyone that Samaritan Ministries has done more than just help me with a job. They have shaped my life. They gave me a sense of hope that I thought was gone. And they helped others who had the same similar situation as me, where we thought we was destined to not be more than what we are. And I just want to thank everyone like Ms. Duffy and all the other employees who work very hard to help us. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Great. Whoa. Yeah.